Welcome to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we amplify the voices of the inspiring business leaders surrounding the B Corp and social impact movements across the Southeast to help you learn how to build your legacy at the intersection of people, planet, purpose, and profit. Today, there are more than 8,000 B Corps in over 80 countries and 180 different industries, unified by one common goal: transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. If you want to learn how to plug into our purpose-driven business community alongside the inspiring leaders we feature on this show, check us out at belocalgeorgia.com or on Instagram or Facebook at belocalgeorgia, and we'll hope to meet you at our next event. Today, I'm joined by Lexie Newhouse, the program director at Boomtown Innovation. Lexie is a powerhouse in the entrepreneurship space, working to bridge the gap between startup concepts and small business success. With experience in policy advocacy, ecosystem building, and direct support for founders, she's passionate about helping businesses thrive, not just by tracking outputs, but by measuring real-world outcomes. In this conversation, we'll talk about the importance of innovation in small business, the barriers faced by entrepreneurs, and the policies shaping the future of entrepreneurship. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an executive, or just a fan of small business and small business owners, you won't want to miss this episode. Lexie Newhouse, welcome to Be the Change Georgia. Glad to finally have you on. This is very exciting.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Nathan. It's great to be here.
Yeah, how are you? Everything good?
It's sunny outside. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take that as a win.
Yeah, well, and people don't know when we record these, but it's a Friday too. So we were joking before we came on that we had our planning call on a Tuesday, and I said, have a good weekend at the end of it. So this time when we end, I can actually wish you a real good weekend and not a hopeful good weekend.
I love it.
But we are encouraging everybody to start saying have a good weekend on Tuesdays from here on out.
Maybe even Mondays. I don't know. We'll see.
So we're going to make it a trend. So, but no, I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to talk about your work at Boomtown and just all kinds of things and just you as a person and your why, and also just kind of one of those people in my circle that sees gaps and plugs themselves in or plugs solutions in to fix them. So it's a message we're sharing and excited to finally let you do it. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's jump right into it because I would love to talk about Boomtown Innovation and just about your role there and how you're helping small businesses thrive.
Absolutely. So Boomtown Innovation, we deliver end-to-end innovation services. We can keep count of how many times I say innovation in a sentence. We added it to our name. No, but it's really cool because we get to not only design it like consultants do, but we actually get to build and operate these innovation programs, which makes us a little unique. And we get to do it for a variety of clients. So for the past couple of years since I've joined Boomtown as a program director, I've been fortunate to help build and deliver innovation programs that have primarily served small businesses. So a little bit different, right? Because traditionally we have served startups, and that's what I've really enjoyed is Boomtown's approach is impact over everything. It is outcomes over outputs. So there's just a really, great pride in the work that we get to do and realize it's really important work too. So one thing that I love is we introduce small businesses to startup concepts, which you don't see too often, right? So we bring in ideas like customer discovery and other approaches, which for many of the participants are the first time that they're getting any sort of exposure to startup concepts that you hear all the time if you're in the ecosystem. So it's really enjoyable that you get to see those kind of light bulb moments of making startup concepts connect to small business, and they get to immediately begin applying it to their business. So that's what my day-to-day looks like. I get to work with people that are bringing brand new ideas into the marketplace. They're building businesses out of passions. And for me, that's what keeps me going.
That's awesome. Well, because like we always, I'm never gonna. Every time I say this phrase, I think of Anastasia. Not every company's venture backable, and a lot of them are. But I think if the traditional, even in higher ed entrepreneurship classes, we teach venture backable entrepreneurship. We teach seed rounds and Series A, and like for let's be honest, the majority of entrepreneurs out there are not in venture backable businesses, and so they either don't take those classes because they don't resonate, or they stumble into entrepreneurship because, like you said, there's a passion or something. So that is a really interesting differentiator with what y'all are doing, is working with more of the bootstrapped or whatever I hate to say non-traditional startups, non-traditional in the way we teach them, the more traditional startups, and giving them the tools to actually go succeed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think there's something else there too that is I don't know, just very cool, of like bringing them no, it's when you said outcomes over outputs. I'd love for you to just kind of elaborate a little bit on that, because I think a lot of people get confused. It sounds like the same thing, but judging the success of what Boomtown Innovation is doing by outcomes versus outputs, can you like talk a little bit about how y'all do that?
Yeah. And, I think it's really unique when it comes to measuring impact on entrepreneurs, right? Because in a lot of cases, it's the output. It's the number of times you deliver a session. It is the number of hours that you've invested into the companies through mentorship. It's the amount of investment into it, right? So those are outputs. Like those are very tangible things versus the outcomes of how has this specific curriculum or investment or whatever it is, right, the resource that has been brought, what is the specific impact on the entrepreneurs at the end of the day? Did it allow them to acquire more customers? How has that affected their bottom line? So I think it's like taking that a level deeper of, okay, we are delivering X number of sessions to entrepreneurs. We're impacting this number of entrepreneurs a month, a quarter, whatever it is, right? But like, what is the actual impact that you're having on them? So it's taking that a step deeper of not just, you know, focusing on the numbers, but again, what's the impact at the end of the day?
I love it. It's a very relevant conversation, even in the B Corp space right now, of like, how do we, you know, the output of, volunteering X number of hours versus the outcomes of what did those hours actually create as far as good or ripples, and same thing with Accelerate. I think you're seeing a pivot. I think we had a boom, no pun intended. There was a boom town of accelerators for a while, and I think there were, and some of them, and it was like the metrics we were tracking was like number of entrepreneurs reached, number of guest speakers, number of subject matter experts, and it's like, did their business get better? Did the owner make more money? Did they create any jobs? Like, what are we doing here? And it's really cool to hear that shift. Hopefully, not just at Boomtown, but with a lot of these accelerators and cohort models.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the reason, Boomtown recently rebranded from Boomtown Accelerators to Boomtown Innovation is, largely because of that shift.
Yeah, and you guys are doing some really cool work. Like, you're in Atlanta. We actually met when you were at Invest Atlanta, but you're doing this work like you were just in Memphis, but you're hitting some really cool pockets that aren't traditionally, whatever you want to call them, like non-startup hubs. But again, people own businesses there. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, but then also like when you're out in these cities, like what barriers are these entrepreneurs facing? As we know, the traditional barriers, especially when it comes to like founders of color, female founders. But also, I heard Joey Womack talking recently about like social capital, and some of these places, like a founder in Mobile might have less social capital than somebody who's an engineer at Google. So those types of things too, like the cities you're hitting. So I'd love to hear about what barriers, and then like what are the commonalities between some of these cities and what you're seeing.
Yeah. So, obviously there's a lot of similarities, right? You got the Atlantas, Memphises, Houstons, those kinds of cities that, in a lot of cases, are predominantly underrepresented, underserved, right? So there's just some of those um, demographic synergies across. I think a lot of it too is like they just naturally have an entrepreneurial spirit that cannot be denied when you go into those cities, right? Like you think of Atlanta that has been built up. I think there's like that tenacity, which is a huge characteristic that we see across these different markets. And that is a good characteristic to have if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like they just go hand in hand. And across these different markets, they obviously have similar barriers for a lot of them, right? So whether it is the social capital, the financial capital, whatever it is, right? Um, the one that I continue to see is really the challenge with the narrative as well. It almost compounds those effects. So it's like, you hear people, oh, I've got my articles of incorporation or whatever formation it is, your business. Well, not really. I mean, that's like a step of it, right? Or, I hate to break that news, but you're getting there. Or like the venture capital that we mentioned, like you need to be a venture backable business. Well, no, not really. Um, and so what I really try to focus is shifting that narrative on focusing access to customers, right? Because customers should really be the thing that carry your business. It's so easy to get caught up in the investment and the loans and the grants, which um, those are tools, right? But you shouldn't be dependent on it for you to start. Those are tools that can help you scale. So that's something that, across these different markets, just really focusing on customers as a sustainable way to um, to grow. And in a lot of cases for businesses, it's like it's not even to grow; it's just to sustain. Like period, right? Like they don't want to grow to multiple locations and 100 employees. They want to make enough money to support them and their family each year, and that's perfectly fine. If anything, like I I advocate for that more. But so that's really the thing of trying to shift the narrative and say, hey, let's really prioritize paying customers, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make your business a business, and it'll make it sustainable. And so like through my various roles, I've tried to seek out opportunities to help facilitate those access to customers, whether it's for a small business or a venture backable startup, whatever it is, right? And so that typically looks like in the form of a pilot or a trial or something. So, like when I was at Invest Atlanta, right, supporting business owners, I would try and find programming where we could bypass the kind of typical onerous procurement process, which, if you are a business that is just starting out, you probably don't have all the paperwork. You certainly don't have all the financial statements or the insurance that a lot of them require. And so, and I know, Nathan, you can, the,
Remember that insurance.
the insurance is insane. Like,
The good old errors and omissions clause. I'm like, why is this so expensive?
exactly. And it's so for me, it's trying to find ways like to remove some of those potential roadblocks so that businesses can get to serving customers faster and getting money in the door faster. Um, so that's something that across all the markets we continue to prioritize in our programming is that customer discovery, the product market fit, because at the end of the day, that is what is going to help these small business founders.
And I love that you said that too about the, I don't want to say degrowth, but, I'm in basically a small little consulting shop in my day job, and running nonprofits and conferences. And yeah, it's about providing a living. Like that's like again, like there's some people who need want to be the next tech bro or whatever, and I'm not here to knock that either. Like that's ambitious. It's a whole other journey. Even to scale a non-venture backable company, I've known some founders, they get up to 100, 125 employees. It can still be a very lucrative exit. It's a very stressful route, but some people love that challenge, and some people are like, no, I'm good here. Um, but I think those businesses, and if you think about the average business, those are the backbones of these small communities. So, like, as you're in these cities, how important are these small businesses? Versus, I mean, I know what Larry Gilbert's been able to do with oh god, what's his tax, whatever the tax prep company anyway, down in Quicken Loans, down in Cleveland, and he basically has rebuilt a lot of Cleveland and put a lot of investment into Detroit, and is kind of like the knight in shining armor for the Rust Belt, that's no longer the Rust Belt. But when we talk small business, when we talk backbones of communities, like how important are these small businesses and their survival for creating jobs, for providing whatever locally sourced, local, just their supply chain magnifier. I'd love to kind of pick your brain on that.
Yeah. Well, it's also a personal subject for me. My family's from Michigan too. So I think we've said this, right? Like small businesses are really the backbone of communities. Like they are the ones that are employing people, that are bringing in income. They also, from kind of a cultural standpoint too, like think of all the places that you go for culture, and they're probably small businesses. They're not typically going to be your corporate thing, which, like, the convenience of a Walmart is awesome, but when you want to go and build community, like, where are you going? Probably a local coffee shop or a brewery or whatever it is, right? So it's just crucial, um, from a jobs perspective, a culture perspective, um, and I there's I feel like just such a large focus on startups, right? Like there is an energy around it. And small businesses don't always get that same energy when they are like putting in all of this work and they have such tremendous impact. I advocate for all, right? But there is a special place for small business, for me, because they just don't always get the resources or the attention, and yet they're the ones that are really building community and creating jobs and doing all the amazing things that they do.
Yeah, no, I'm literally today. That's my Friday afternoon meeting. I'm meeting a friend of mine that I'm on a board with. We're going to do some brainstorming. We're going to do it at the High Low Lounge, that's owned. She owns two places. I got married at the other bar that she owns. So yeah, those are the places of community and the places that make communities unique as well. But like you said, all the trickle down to jobs created and what there's, and then all the different local breweries that you can drink there, and all the different local farms that are on the plate that you eat. So yeah, it's a really cool. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, I thought about like all the supply chain effects. I hadn't really thought about the cultural aspect of small business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, supply chain is just as important.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we're all interrelated. You touched on this. You didn't say it, but you were kind of getting there, and I want to talk about the right to start, because you've been heavily involved and a big proponent, and so I'd love for you to share what it is, and then I think we know why you're so passionate about it, but talk about that a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I think your fire is inspiring, so feel free to kind of get into your why and continue to kind of like be your authentic self as you've been throughout this entire interview, because I think it's awesome.
we may be here a minute.
Uh-oh, soapbox. Do you want me to get the soapbox
Yep,
out?
I'm ready.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, if I haven't done that already. Yeah, okay. So, Right to Start is just a fantastic organization. I am really honored to be an advocate for them. And basically, they're a nonprofit, they're nonpartisan, and their whole goal is to expand entrepreneurial opportunity for all. So, it's like what I live and breathe to do, which is awesome. So, so it was just really fascinating when I came across this organization. And they, drive civic change through a variety of ways. So they do grassroots organizing, policy advocacy, and then they also, of course, like highlight the entrepreneurs through storytelling, right? So kind of getting back to that narrative point earlier. Um, and so, kind of like from a business climate, when we're looking at Georgia and Atlanta, like we've done fairly well when stacked up against Right to Start's recommendations, like on the policy front, that kind of stuff. Like we've got designated offices for innovation and entrepreneurship and small business, different governments at the state and city levels have one-stop shops that have resources for businesses, right? Not that, you know, we're doing it perfectly, but comparatively, when looking at the nation, we've got some pretty good, robust infrastructure for supporting small business and entrepreneurs and startups, which, I mean, is reassuring because Georgia has been voted as one of the best states to do business for like 10 years now or whatever it is, right? So it's like it's pretty positive on that front. But what I love is just like Right to Start is just so creative when it comes to their policy making. They have one in particular that they call 5% to start. And so basically, what that policy recommendation is saying is that, hey, state or city or county government, whatever it is, dedicate a small percentage of your current funding, whether that's like through government contracting or economic development initiatives, right? And dedicate that to new entrepreneurs and early businesses and then track it because our systems, no surprise, have been in favor of like the big players versus the newcomers, right? Like it's just easier to work with someone that you've worked with for the past 30 years. They don't have to go through the whole new procurement process and like all that, right? And so, and the other thing that I love about this piece of policy is that, there's all these shifts with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Like it's getting harder to devote a certain percentage to underrepresented founders. Some people you can't even use that language anymore, right? So
I was waiting for lightning to strike us when you said it.
yeah. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. But the thing about this is like it's kind of a way around it because like we know Black women are the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs, for example. So if we can say, hey, county, devote just 5% of your contracts for the year to businesses that are 5 years and younger, right? Prioritize those younger businesses. And oftentimes, what they've seen is by bringing in these newer businesses, they're more innovative and they're more diverse, right? I mean, it's just a math game at that point. And so this is something that I've, been working to advocate for. I'm in Cobb, so that's something that I've, reached out to Cobb County about, the city of Atlanta, and even the state of trying to prioritize this kind of policy that is more business friendly towards, new entrepreneurs, younger businesses. And, the reality of this is through this kind of work that Right to Start really charters, the whole goal is to promote this entrepreneurial opportunity because, again, it results in jobs, it results in higher incomes, greater productivity, lower inequality, stronger communities, less poverty, right? Like there's so many reasons. And Right to Start, I think, as an organization, just does a really good job of educating so that anyone can go and advocate for this. Like, you don't have to specialize in entrepreneurship-led economic development or whatever it is, right? They have great resources like policy guides for the local and state and national levels. And so their whole goal with the whole grassroots kind of initiative is to get everyone engaged because everyone is connected to a small business somehow, whether your family has run one, whether you frequent them for dinner or whatever it is. And the one thing I'll add to this as well is small business is typically something that will bring people together. Like, it oftentimes can be a nonpartisan effort that brings people across the aisle because their families have owned small businesses and they frequent small businesses. So that's something, like, especially in today's climate of like trying to let's make some progress on this thing that could actually bring people together when it seems almost impossible. So that's my soapbox of supporting, entrepreneurship policy, and Right to Start, just really an awesome organization that is doing just that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk Athens, Clarke County, because I'm on the board of the Minority Business and Nonprofit Association. And I'm like, oh, like, again, this is what we're here. Like, people are watching this, so they're listening, but you couldn't see me actually pull my notebook out and start taking notes while Lexie was talking, where I'm like, oh, some ideas here. But you're right, though. I mean, and I've been pushing this for a while in the B Corp community, that like, make the business case. Like, like, I think we lead too often with the the stuff we're passionate about, which is the economic equality and community development and representation, and not just representation, but that they thrive and they succeed. And at the end of the day, I think if we lead with the small business case, I think the rest of it maybe we can get alongside it. We're giving away our whole playbook now, our incognito playbook,
Uh-oh.
but I think it's important to talk about, though. And I think that is one of the pluses. I think the one thing that separates Georgia from a lot of states is that, leadership across the board, for the most part, is business. I mean, you said we're, the top 10, or not even top 10, but usually the most business friendly state,
Yeah,
number one, for a really long time in a lot of categories. And if there's a business case to be made, if it creates jobs, if it benefits Georgians, it's usually a slam dunk case for us. And we'll do it, we'll invest in it, we'll make it happen.
exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I think, and that's part of the like the dichotomy of it too. It's people oftentimes have a hard time like attributing impact and like converting that to profit, but like they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? I mean, we see that through. I mean, B Corp is like the perfect example of that, of impact and profit. They can go hand in hand.
Yeah, 100%. And then just remember the old no profit, no purpose, though. Making sure, and that's kind of some of the work you're doing, though, and I have to do it when I meet with, startups, is reminding them of, because you do see this, especially in younger entrepreneurs, that desire to really do more than just make money in it. But sometimes you have to, almost have to like rein them in a little bit, where you're like, okay, well, we can give away 10% of our revenue at some point, but let's get a little economic stability. Let's have, a payroll runway in the bank. Let's think about some things before we commit to, giving away our margins, or putting at jeopardy your ability to pay yourself. So I
Hmm.
think that's where a lot of these businesses go under, is you do the right thing too many times, and it will so slowly but surely eat away at the economic viability. And then I think you reach that level of like burnout amongst owners too, where everybody's getting paid but you.
Hmm.
And that's not a healthy place to be either. And it's okay to pay yourself as a business owner. Sorry, that's my soapbox rant. Um, it's okay to make money. For somebody listening that's thinking, okay, maybe I'm thinking about starting my own business, or I've been thinking about it for a while, and I'm kind of scared and I don't know what to do. Like, what would you recommend? Where would you send them? What kind of, programming should they be looking for? I know like SBDC in Georgia, just, it's free for any business owner. I have a free consultant. I'm going next Thursday. What would you recommend, though, to somebody who's maybe a little bit on the fence, a little hesitant? Maybe they don't have, a business. I mean, like my case, I didn't know anybody that ever owned a business. So outside of like, people like business owners, but like nobody in like friends, family, anybody. So where would you send people, and what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I guess more on the advice or like mindset front. Um, I I really like leaning into the whole do things that don't scale. So something that Paul Graham is accredited with, but It's basically just encouraging entrepreneurs like do the manual, really personalized efforts in the early stages of the business. So like it's not sustainable, you can't do it long term, but it really allows you to get a deeper understanding of your customers and the product market fit before you go and invest and build these really sophisticated automated processes and spend thousands of dollars on a software, or you go and it's that kind of thing, right? And so do things that don't scale is something that I really encourage. And, it doesn't have to be perfect to start. Like, that's why it's called an MVP, like a minimally viable product. Like, and you just want to get it, I mentioned this earlier, but get it out in front of customers so that you can start really understanding them and can determine whether or not someone will actually pay for it. Um, and an MVP can look like a variety of things, right? I think we oftentimes associate that with, the mock up of the software or the app or whatever it is. But like in terms of maybe small business, for example, like I volunteer with our Kennesaw Farmers Market through the Downtown Development Authority. And it's like the perfect opportunity. It's low stakes, but these entrepreneurs get to go and put their product out in the market and can collect feedback and see if like this is really a viable business for them. And so it's like let's do things that don't scale, right? And so now they've done it, they've proved it out, and we've had people that have gone on and with their baked goods and whatnot have gone and opened brick and mortar locations. But it's because they were able to really vet out their product and the customer market fit and that kind of thing. So that's like from a mindset perspective what I really try to encourage, because it could be so easy getting caught up in, oh, I need a really sophisticated website and a way to schedule with people, and my product needs to be like most perfectly packaged and like all this stuff, right? When um just really focus on what is core to the business. Aside from that kind of mindset, like more tangible resources, I'm always going to point people to Startup Atlanta. Um, and although startup is in the name, it's really business friendly. I mean, small businesses can tap into it just as easily. And we have a variety of tools within our digital toolkit. So we've got a community calendar. So you can go to free events in person and online so you can connect with other entrepreneurs and other entrepreneur support organizations, right? So, like, that's a good way to get connected, because oftentimes entrepreneurship can be so lonely and you feel like you're going crazy. But the reality is, there's a whole lot of other people that are also going through it. So I think that's good from a community perspective. We also have the ecosystem guide, which outlines all of the resources and co-working spaces and various institutions that are dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs in the Metro Atlanta region. So that's just another great guide where people here within the Metro can look into. Um, amongst other like opportunities that we have listed through Startup Atlanta. So that's something for our folks that are here near Atlanta. Definitely take a look at Startup Atlanta so that you can access some of those programs and resources and grants and things of the like.
It was a pretty cool, supportive ecosystem, even for somebody who lives in what I call the eastern tip of the metro in Athens. Um, there's a lot of, I've been welcomed with open arms into that Atlanta scene, and it's very supportive. And yes, what is Joey saying? All founders need therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely find your support network. I've got a couple CEO friends that I go have dinner, and their businesses are way bigger than mine, but we go and we just kind of vent and just what's on our mind that week. So definitely do that. I also want to hit one thing you touched on: the perfection over being the enemy of progress. It was literally like last night I was on LinkedIn, and I don't know why that quote's been in my mind a lot lately. And Jay Bailey, who's been on the podcast as well, like he posted a picture of the new construction at Rice, where I feel like there's always new construction at Rice.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a, like, this is the most poignant way to describe this. What if we had waited until this building was done versus 6 years ago when it was a shell and it was all under construction? They were already getting stakeholders in, providing the resources, and like the perfection will come at some point, but they were able to start doing the progress and the work long before that. So I think that's important, because I do think a lot of people think they need the perfect packaging and the perfect website and the perfect this. And it's like, now you just need to see whether or not people want to buy your, you know what?
Yeah.
And if they don't, no website's going to help you, man.
Exactly. Yep. Boom.
Yeah. Boomtown.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to keep a count on innovation too, and I lost it.
Oh,
Actually, it wasn't that bad. You did well. One more question I'm adding. That you're the first person I'm going to do this to and put you on the spot. What gives you hope for the entrepreneur scene, for whatever, and just what gives you hope that everything's going to be all right and that we're in good hands and the future's bright and shiny?
I mean, my hope really lies in the entrepreneurs. Like, if you can get up every day and self-motivate and like pursue something out of your passion, like if everyone does that, I think we'll be okay. Um, but they keep me going because they every single day there's you know another hill to climb, something comes up, another blockade, and they get through it. I mean, not easily, like who would, but they find a way. And so that's what gives me hope.
That's awesome. And one more completely random question, because you name dropped a bunch. How many boards are you on right now?
Way too. No.
I've been on this big, like, and I'm about to put something out on LinkedIn. We'll see if people like it or not, but basically about taking action. And like, I think it's one of the reasons I'm drawn to some of these people, the Jen Sings of the world, like the Jays, the Joe, like crazy people. But doing, like, seeing a void, seeing a need. So there's just nothing but a lot of respect for you and your work and your crazy personness. So I hope more people see that, and it's not that hard to serve on a board. It's some extra hours of your week, but it is really rewarding.
Well, yeah, and I think I mean, personally too, it just diversifies. Like, we have so many different interests, right? Like, the boards that I serve on aren't all entrepreneurship focused. Some of them are workforce. There's Downtown Development Authority, my HOA, which isn't as fun, but and so I think it's a great way to give back, and then it keeps you fueled because you're doing different things. It's not just the same conversation, the same people. You get to help across so many different areas, so that keeps me going for sure.
All right. Well, I'll let you go because I've asked you way too many questions. But I'm incredibly grateful for the time and just knowing you and knowing your work and knowing what you're doing. And I guess if I had to turn around and ask the question of myself, like, what gives me hope is knowing there's the people like you out there, helping those entrepreneurs, helping those basically put food on their families' tables, on their employees' families' tables. Like, knowing you're out there, I think we're in good hands. So thanks for coming on. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Nathan. I appreciate you bringing me on, and your work keeps me inspired. So you keep it up.
I'll try. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lexie.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nathan.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change, Georgia. We're grateful, as always, for the opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate this show wherever you get your podcasts by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast to grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening, and now go be a leader worth following.